The Manchester Derby is the kind of game where just a single moment can flip everything on its head. At the Etihad last season, it was Amad Diallo who had his flashes. But last night, those moments came thick and fast, and they belonged entirely to one side. 3 goals, a dominant performance, and a cold, cutting message from Manchester City to the rest of the Premier League. We're still here, and we're still contenders. But behind that 3-0 scoreline was more than just Foden and Haaland finding the net. It was also a tactical masterpiece painted by Pep Guardiola. Every pass, every press felt like a blade slicing right through Manchester United's weak spots. The real question is, how exactly did City drown their rivals? And what fatal mistakes did United make that led to their complete collapse? Even though Pep Guardiola's side has been dealing with injuries and patches of inconsistency, one truth remains undeniable. The Spaniard's coaching genius is still operating on a level of its own. In difficult circumstances, Pep's brilliance was clear in his team selection, his approach to the game, and, most importantly, his reading of the opponent. One of the biggest highlights of this derby was City's pressing. Pep didn't need his strongest 11 to impose a structure that was stable, relentless, and brutally effective. The 4-4-2 pressing shape they rolled out suffocated United from the back, cutting off their build-up at the source. Almost every attempt to play out was smothered. That, right there, was the key. Total control of the tempo and total control of the game. City read Amorim's build-up patterns like an open book. Their pressing was disciplined, collective, and ruthless. Haaland and Foden formed the first line of pressure, pinning United's centre-backs and forcing goalkeeper Bayendier into uncomfortable moments on the ball. The trap was clear. Haaland closed the central passing lane, Foden shut off the outlet wide, and Bayendier was left with no choice but to go long. And that's exactly what City wanted. Those long balls were toothless. De Ligt and Shaw couldn't distribute under pressure, and United's midfield was cut off completely. Bruno Fernandes and Manuel Ugarte, supposedly the men to dictate United's rhythm, were invisible. Not because they played badly, but because City's pressing made them disappear. It wasn't just the front 2 pressing high. City's midfielders and wide players squeezed the spaces around Bruno and Ugarte until they had nowhere to breathe. Every time one of them tried to drop deep, 2 blue shirts closed in, one pressing the ball, another blocking the return pass. That synchronized pressure left United trapped. They simply couldn't escape with short passes, the very thing they needed if they were going to stand any chance of leveling the game. Another impressive aspect of City's pressing was their ability to cover for each other. Whenever one player stepped up to press, a teammate immediately shifted to protect the space left behind. That balance kept the system watertight, minimizing the gaps United might have hoped to exploit. The clearest example was the partnership between Rodri and Reinders. Rodri held his position, reading the play and cutting off central passing lanes, while Reinders was more dynamic, darting forward to apply direct pressure. And whenever Reinders left his spot, Rodri instinctively filled in. That's why United never found a way through the Zone 14 area, the most dangerous patch right in front of the box. City's 4-4-2 block was also flexible. When United tried to build down the flanks, Doku and Bernardo Silva dropped deeper, temporarily morphing the shape into a 4-5-1. That tactical shift allowed City to maintain their pressing intensity high up the pitch while still keeping numbers compact when defending. United were constantly forced wide, dragged out of balance, and stripped of options to work the ball back inside. Piece by piece, all these details combined into a suffocating press. United not only lost the ball in dangerous areas, but also looked mentally drained, constantly recycling possession back to Bayendier. And every time the goalkeeper went long, City comfortably won it back in midfield, thanks to superior positioning and numbers. This was Guardiola's blueprint, a game plan that didn't require his most dazzling individuals, just a collective pressing machine that turned United into passengers, chasing shadows all night. On the other side, Ruben Amorim went bold, choosing to go toe-to-toe with City at the Etihad. On paper, it showed confidence, a refusal to sit back and absorb pressure. The obvious target was Gianluigi Donnarumma, whose distribution has often been questioned. But that gamble quickly backfired. By By pushing their line high, United exposed their old flaws, a lack of pace in defense and little defensive cover from midfield. Those weaknesses became glaring under City's spotlight, and Guardiola's men punished them without mercy. One of Amorim's biggest mistakes was leaving United's backline so exposed. Time and again, De Ligt and Shaw were forced into 1v1 duels against Haaland or Foden, without a holding midfielder dropping in to shield them. And whenever City regained possession and switched to transition, the acres of space behind United's defense opened up like a treasure chest. Guardiola knew it too. Give Haaland or Doku just a few meters to run into, and danger is inevitable. City's second goal in the 53rd minute was the perfect example. United had pushed high, lost the ball in midfield, and within just 2 passes the ball was at Doku's feet. With his raw pace and direct dribbling, he tore into the vast space behind Shaw, ripping United's defensive line apart. Haaland needed only one perfectly timed run, one clean delivery, and the finish was ice cold. That was the direct consequence of Amorim's failure to build a protective layer between midfield and defense. The third goal exposed United's fragility even further. Chasing the game, Amorim urged his fullbacks forward to press higher, but in doing so, he left gaping holes behind. City only needed to beat the press once and switch play to create a 3-on-3. At that point, United's lack of defensive pace was a death sentence. Haaland didn't even need to break stride. His sheer speed and physical power were too much. Within seconds, United went from attacking with intent to being ruthlessly punished with a killer blow. The stats after the match tell the same story. On paper, United looked competitive, more possession, more passes. But those numbers were deceiving. Amorim's high line handed City the perfect stage to counter at will. Guardiola's men broke through United's press 33 times, compared to just 9 for United. That's not balance, it's dominance disguised by possession. Another glaring flaw in Amorim's setup was the disconnect between midfield and defense. With Bruno Fernandes and Ugarte pushing high to press, they left enormous pockets of space behind them. Against a team like City, with Rodri and Bernardo Silva always ready to thread line-breaking passes, it was an open invitation. Every time United's first wave of pressing was bypassed, their backline was thrown into chaos. Without a holding midfielder to anchor the space, United were essentially leaving the back door wide open. And Pep Guardiola? He's a master at punishing such mistakes. Instead of recklessly flooding forward, he simply waited, patient, calculating, until United overcommitted. One misplaced pass, one mistimed touch, and City struck like lightning. They didn't need wave after wave of chances. All they needed was the right situation, the right player receiving the ball, and United's vulnerabilities turned instantly into goals. Clearly, choosing to go toe-to-toe came at a heavy price. United neither had the physical edge to outmuscle City in duels, nor the organization to cover the spaces left behind when they pressed high. With a slow backline and no safety net, a high press was nothing short of suicide. And City, with Haaland's predatory instinct and the sharpness of their forwards, needed no second invitation to punish. The opening goal in the 18th minute told the whole story. United lined up with 3 center-backs, Shaw on the left, De Ligt in the middle, and Euro to the right. But the problem came whenever the wing-backs pushed forward to press or join the attack. The space between Shaw and De Ligt, the dreaded half space, was left wide open. That was exactly where City slipped through, exploiting the gap. With no cover and no tracking, one precise cross was all it took for Foden to rise and head City into the lead. And that's the eternal dilemma of the 3-4-3 system. If the wingbacks stay deep to guard the half space, the team loses attacking width and becomes passive. But if they push high, as Amorim demanded, the spaces behind them turn into a banquet for quick, technical sides like City. And in the Premier League, that problem is magnified. Nearly every top side has wingers or strikers smart enough to attack those golden channels. The failure of the 3-4-3 in England also lies in tempo. The system demands wingbacks to do double duty, bombing forward in attack and tracking back in defense. But with the relentless schedule and ferocious pressing intensity of the Premier League, balance is almost impossible. The moment wing-backs tire, the half spaces and flanks are exposed. City needed less than 20 minutes to exploit those gaps for the first goal, and they kept going back to the same move throughout the night. This Manchester derby wasn't just about the 3-0 scoreline, it was a clash of tactical philosophies. Pep Guardiola once again proved his class, orchestrating a pressing masterclass and mercilessly exploiting United's flaws. Ruben Amorim, meanwhile, looked trapped in a system that simply doesn't suit the Premier League. Unless he adapts quickly, United will keep paying the price, with their half spaces and backline picked apart by stronger opponents. For City, though, this victory was more than just 3 points. It reinforced their position at the top and sent a chilling reminder. They remain a well-oiled machine, fully capable of crushing anyone who dares to stand in their way. A derby rich in tactics, but with a result that could not have been clearer.